Oh, a microphony.
And a phony at the mic.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The Doctor of Discernment is now online.
You know, much like my show, in that it's a local reaction to things that are happening on a federal level.
Dispensing a daily dose of common sense. No prescription required.
Wow, do I have a boatload of stuff for you, from the crazy to the absurd. Let's start getting into it because, I mean, it is bizarro world out there. And I say, if it's obvious to me, should be obvious to everyone. Oh, wow. Who could have seen this coming?
This is the Fourth Hour with Greg Belfrage.
Hold on to your butts.
Broadcasting from the basement bunker beneath Kettle Radio. Welcome to the Fourth Hour of the Greg Belfrage Show. It is great to have you along. If you're not yet a subscriber on YouTube, please consider becoming one. We're picking up more and more, and I appreciate all of you very, very much. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, I had this story in the stack of stuff this morning. Did not have time to share it on the air this morning, but I held on to it. I wanted to share it with you now. This is from the Daily Mail. A Minneapolis woman shares how her home city has been destroyed by bullying woke mobs like the one seen at the yoga studio. Remember I told you about that recently? So she's took off. She took off from now. You would think, oh yeah, conservative in Minneapolis. No, no. She is a once liberal author. She was a liberal, and she's talking about how woke mobs are destroying Minneapolis. Her name is Ann Bauer, and she, I think, in an essay in the Free Press, she describes how hordes of righteous far lefters are shaming people for their opinions, and that has become the norm in Minneapolis. So and that's what we've seen, right? I think that's what we have seen, and we've been watching the insanity that has been coming out of Minneapolis. So she and her family got fed up with it. They moved to Kentucky late last year. So she's 59 years old. She actually visited this yoga place. This is where the folks went in to the yoga studio. I made a big deal about this with you a week or so ago. Went into the yoga studio, and you were demanding that, signs be put up regarding ice, getting ice out and so on, ice out signs that were up, and they wanted those back up, and they were it was crazy town is what it was. I mean, I watched that thing unfold, and I'm like, this is like living in bizarro world, man. Seriously, and this is what this author is saying. So she had friends of hers who then contacted her. This was at a place called Core Power. And she went to the Core Power where this happened. And so when footage then was being shared online, she had friends reaching out to her and saying, oh, yeah, I've seen this. She said not this particular scene, but several like it. And so she said she and her husband had moved to Minneapolis in 2014. And they loved it at first. They thought it was perfect. And that's where she grew up. So she's returning to her hometown. And she said the city was close to perfect, but there were paradoxes. And she starts talking about this. Protesters clashing with police and the level of anger. And she said more and more what she saw in Minneapolis, that people were performative in their wokeness, but not calling for any real kind of change in the system. And then she was being chastised because she wasn't speaking out. So this woke crowd demands that you also be woke and that you speak out about it. that you join them. So again, it's a little bit different. I think people who are pushing for real change versus people that are part of this mob, crazy, nutty mentality. There's a big difference. And she says, she saw the city then again when Donald Trump was elected the second time. She said the city spiraled out of control. And she says she's not a fan of Trump's, but she noticed it was pretty much all that anybody could talk about was Trump. She felt like even more of an outcast when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. She spoke out about Governor Tim Walz and the way that he handled the situation with school shutdowns, vaccine mandates, all the stuff that the left loved. She spoke out about it, and she lost all of her clients. She was a brand consultant. She lost all of her clients because she spoke out about what Walz was doing. And she said, and it just got progressively worse. So now she's moved to Kentucky. And you can find, I found this story at the Daily Mail, but she actually has written an essay in the Free Press talking about this. So it's pretty crazy. You have people who it's gotten so bad in Minneapolis, they got to get out of there. And again, it's not because they're Republicans or they're Trump supporters or these are people that actually might be in line with, some more liberal kind of viewpoints. And it got so bad for her in Minneapolis, she had to leave. Just absolutely crazy. So I mentioned the story to you last week, and Town Hall has been reporting on this. And over the weekend, Town Hall, this is a piece, who wrote this piece? Amy Curtis at townhall.com. And she says, over the weekend, Town Hall reported how a group of awfuls, they're affluent, white, female, urban leftists, awfuls, bunch of awfuls descended on a Minneapolis yoga studio to berate and bully the staff into condemning ICE agents, the core power yogist. And what I told you last week is, how stupid is this? You're going into a yoga studio and you're demanding that the studio condemn ICE. I mean, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. If you don't like their point of view and if they're not doing enough for you, then you just stop going there. You don't behave like a lunatic, right? It's just crazy. So the yoga studio had committed the sin of removing an anti-ICE sign. I think it was an ICE out. So there was an ICE out sign. They took it down and the people went nuts. They decided it was unacceptable. They had the right to demand that the Core Power Yoga run their business according to their own personal political views, which of course is nonsense. And so now this, the Minneapolis woman, by the way, who berated the yoga studio employees, and she's banned from the studio. She cannot go back. She is out. Heather Anderson is her name, and she had filmed it, and the clip showed about a dozen women who were surrounding two employees, wondering why they took down the sign and just demanding all kinds of things. And what Amy Curtis says, those instructors have no right to speak their mind on their employer's dime. But the employer has every right to remove anti-ICE signage from their business. But of course, the left doesn't believe that. And that's what all this is about. It's just absolutely crazy. And this just goes on. I think it's, again, you you're free to protest and you want to hit the sidewalks and you want to engage in this stuff. You're not free to do that in a business. You are going into a business, somebody else's property, somebody else's livelihood, and now you're protesting. You are not entitled to take your protest into someone's business. Excuse me. So that is just like absolutely crazy. Also, there was a story at Fox News this morning about this would be a follow-up to the Super Bowl, but it's different. No Bad Bunny here. No Bad Bunny here. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security said that despite ICE being demonized at the Super Bowl, agents were out and they were doing their work. ICE law enforcement officers, despite smears from Hollywood, Tricia McLaughlin says ICE is making our country safer every day. She said there were a number of folks who were arrested. Now, this would be during the Super Bowl. So during the Super Bowl, ICE is out doing their job. They arrested an illegal alien from Mexico who was arrested a few hours from the stadium, convicted of sex with a minor, and that's why they were after him. A little further away, agents arrested a Salvadoran illegal in Las Vegas. He was convicted of gross or open lewdness. In Nevada, ICE arrested a Colombian illegal who was convicted of 2 counts of sexual assault on a minor under 14. In New York, an illegal from the Dominican Republic who had been convicted of murder, and another from El Salvador who was convicted of rape. So while the Super Bowl was ongoing, these are the men and women of ICE, and this is what they were out doing, making the country safe from people who are in the country illegally, who had been convicted of crimes in their home countries, and now are here. How can you oppose that? That's what blows my. No rational, reasonable person opposes this. This is just woke mentality, people carrying on. Hakeem Jeffries, I did mention this early in the program this morning, but I got to share it with you again because this is just too good. Hakeem Jeffries criticizing the SAVE Act, the Save America Act. I've talked about it a lot, and I'll continue to talk about it a lot. So Hakeem Jeffries mentioned it during his weekly press conference. There is a bill, an expected vote on the bill, perhaps coming as soon as tomorrow. And so Hakeem Jeffries was out, and hold your laughter as I share this. He says, Republicans have adopted voter suppression as an electoral strategy. That's what the so-called SAVE Act is all about. He said the bill is getting worse than the previous iteration. And he said, now, again, if you're not familiar with the SAVE Act, certainly not for a lack of me talking about it, I mentioned it a number of times, the SAVE Act would implement a new proof of citizenship requirement when you go to register to vote. When you go to register, you would have to show proof of citizenship. And when you go to vote, you would have to show an ID. You would have to show a legal ID, state ID, whatever. And there are a number of different IDs that you could show that have been verified. So Jeffries is pointing to a provision that would require information sharing between state election officials and federal authorities in verifying citizenship then on the current voter rolls. And he said, this version, as I understand it, will actually give ICE the power to get voting records from states across the country. Why would these extremists think that's a good idea? Because you have people who are moving from one state to another. They are trying to avoid detention. They're trying to get away. So that's why it's a good idea. I mean, the simplicity of it just makes sense, I think, to a lot of us. So he says, again, try to keep your breakfast down. Who'd want DHS and ICE, who've been brutally, viciously, and violently targeting everyday Americans? Okay, they're not targeting everyday Americans. They're targeting people who are in the country illegally. They don't belong here. They don't have a legal right to be in the country. They are in the country illegally. They are not. See, this is what the Democrats do. And so, of course, people get all riled up and they get upset because this is the way the Democrats always speak. Problem with the Democrats now is they are so far left. It's just absolutely incredible. So he says it's outrageous. Something is really wrong with these folks. No, Hakeem Jeffries, something is really wrong with you, brother. Something is really wrong in your headspace. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. So that his comments kind of blew me away. See, Florida now is requiring all driver's license tests to be taken only in English. The Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles officially implemented an English-only testing standard for all driver's license classifications. So that went into statewide effect on Friday. And it eliminates then language translation services and devices. And there are those who are you don't understand English, then we're going to put all our materials then in Spanish or in other languages so that we can make it easier for people who don't understand English. You want to come into this country, we welcome you. We welcome you. You know, a lot of our families have come to the United States from other countries. My own, in fact, around the Civil War is when my family came, settled initially in Iowa, of all places. And then some of the family moving up into South Dakota. That's where my family is from. So around the period of the Civil War, one of my ancestors fought in the Civil War on the side of the Union. So all of us are immigrants. You know, a lot of us, our families have immigrated to this country, and I welcome that. But you got to learn how to speak English. You've got to learn how to speak English. I think that is just a no-brainer. That is one of those issues. It's like talking about the SAVE Act, Save American, voter eligibility. It resonates with people on Main Street. The issue of English, same thing. It resonates with people on Main Street. They get it. They want that. And it's governments that are, trying to bring in people into the country who don't speak. And you saw it at the Super Bowl, that they are the NFL now. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. The culture that they are trying to create in this country. And there's just a lot of work to do, an incredible amount of work to do. Joe Scarborough, speaking of Bad Bunny, Joe Scarborough went off and he said, with people who are upset about Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl, and of course then he says, if you don't like the NFL featuring Bad Bunny in halftime, you must be a socialist who hates capitalism. What? What has happened to Joe Scarborough? Somebody's got to throw him a life preserver, because that guy is so far in over his head. There was one other story, and I looked for this. I wanted to share it on the air this morning. Lindsey Vonn. This is uplifting. It's a great story on which to end this morning. Lindsey Vonn, who had that terrible crash on Sunday and taking her out of the 2026 Winter Games. And she spoke out for the first time since the accident. And she said, my Olympic dream did not finish the way I dreamt it would. It wasn't a storybook ending or a fairy tale. It was just life. I dared to dream and had worked so hard to achieve it, because in downhill ski racing, the difference between a strategic line and a catastrophic injury can be as small as 5 inches. I was simply 5 inches too tight on my line when my right arm hooked inside of the gate, twisting me and resulting in my crash. And it was a terrible crash. Have you seen it? It's like, youch. She said my ACL and past injuries had nothing to do with my crash whatsoever. So she said she will need multiple surgeries. And she said, well, yesterday did not end the way I had hoped. And despite the intense physical pain it caused, I have no regrets. Standing in the starting gate was an incredible feeling that I will never forget. Knowing I stood there having a chance to win was a victory in and of itself. I also knew that racing was a risk. It always was and always will be an incredibly dangerous sport. And she said, and similar to ski racing, we take risks in life. We dream, we love, we jump, and sometimes we fall. Sometimes our hearts are broken. Sometimes we don't achieve the dreams we know we could have. But that is also the beauty of life, that we can try. I thought those were tremendous words, and I wanted to share them with you this morning. If you're not a subscriber of mine on YouTube yet, please consider becoming one. Looking for more and more subscribers all the time. Thanks to all of you for being here. I appreciate you. You have made it to the end of the video, so you are part of my gallery of champions. A salute to the Bunker Brigade, who are active on YouTube each and every day. Appreciate all of you. So until tomorrow, my friends, I'm underground and gone.